An 84-year-old woman was taken from her home in the middle of the night in Tucson, Arizona. Her blood was found on the front porch. A masked man with a gun was caught on her doorbell camera. The FBI took over the case. More than 30,000 tips came in from the public. The reward of over $200,000 is sitting unclaimed. 3 weeks have passed. Nancy Guthrie has not been found, and nobody has come forward with a single answer. Nancy Guthrie was born Nancy Ellen Long on the 27th of January, 1942, in Fort Wright, Kentucky. She turned 84 years old just 5 days before she was taken. She has lived in the Tucson, Arizona area for more than 50 years. She moved there with her family in the early 1970s and never left. She raised 3 children in that community. Her husband Charles Guthrie died at age 49 while on a mining exploration trip in Mexico in 1988. Nancy raised her children after that, largely on her own. Her daughter Savannah Guthrie is the co-anchor of the Today Show on NBC, one of the most watched morning news programs in the United States. Her other daughter is Annie Guthrie. Her son is Cameron Guthrie. All 3 children are adults with families of their own. People who knew Nancy described her as mentally sharp and completely independent for her age. She lived alone in her home in the Catalina Foothills neighborhood of Tucson, near East Skyline Drive and North Campbell Avenue. She managed her own schedule. She kept her own routines. She was active in her church community and checked in regularly with her children. The one significant concern about her health was her mobility. The Pima County Sheriff described her directly by saying she could not walk 50 yards by herself. She relied on daily medication. She had a pacemaker. She had dealt with high blood pressure and heart issue. For an 84-year-old woman with those conditions to survive being taken from her home and held somewhere, every single day that passes matters in a way it would not for a younger person. That is the weight behind every update in this case. Every day without answers is a day that her medical situation becomes more dangerous. The last confirmed time anyone saw Nancy Guthrie was the evening of Saturday, the 31st of January 2026. She had dinner at her daughter Annie's house. Her son-in-law, Tommaso Cioni, dropped her off at her home afterward at around 9:50 in the evening. This specific detail later sparked intense internet speculation, which is exactly why the sheriff had to publicly clear the family days later she went inside. The night appeared completely normal. What happened next is reconstructed entirely from technology and evidence found the following morning. At 19:47 in the morning, on the 1st of February, Nancy Guthrie's doorbell camera disconnected. It did not malfunction on its own. The suspect didn't just turn it off. They masked their approach by holding a bouquet of weeds and vegetation to block the lens before disabling it. FBI surveillance footage later released to the public shows a masked figure at her front door in the hours before she disappeared. That figure was wearing a black 25-liter Ozark trail hiker backpack, the kind sold at Walmart under their private label outdoor brand. The figure was also wearing a handgun holster. The FBI described the suspect as being between 5 feet 9 inches and 5 feet 10 inches tall. This person came prepared. They came with a weapon. They came knowing where her camera was and how to disable it. They came in the middle of the night when an 84-year-old woman would be asleep and defenseless. At around noon on the 1st of February, Nancy did not show up to a friend's house for their regular virtual church service. That absence triggered concern immediately. Her family was notified. Family members went to her home at around 11 in the morning and spent time looking for her before calling 911 at 12:03 in the afternoon. What they found inside that home confirmed their worst fears: blood. There were blood drops found at the entryway of the house, leading from inside toward the front door and down the pathway toward the driveway. The blood was later confirmed to be Nancy Guthrie's. Her pacemaker had already disconnected from the application on her phone. Her medication was still in the house. Her car was still in the garage. Investigators would later tow that blue SUV to an impound lot as part of the evidence collection. Nancy Guthrie was gone, but the most desperate search tactic relies on her medical condition. Investigators have deployed drones and helicopters equipped with signal sniffers, flying over the Tucson desert, trying to catch a faint Bluetooth ping from her pacemaker. Blood on the porch, a disconnected camera, a masked man with a gun. notes, and she needed daily medication to survive. Keep that in mind as this investigation gets more complicated than anyone expected. The Pima County Sheriff's Department was the first agency to respond. Sheriff Chris Nanos took personal charge of the public communications around the case from the beginning. He was direct and blunt, in a way that law enforcement officials often are not in missing person cases. He said publicly that he believed Nancy Guthrie had been abducted. He said that taken against her will includes possible kidnapping or abduction. He said she could not walk 50 yards by herself and could not have left on her own. He eliminated any possibility that this was a voluntary disappearance. Because of the nature of the case, the FBI joined the investigation almost immediately to provide additional resources. A multi-agency response was assembled that included the Pima County Sheriff's Department, the FBI, U.S. Customs and Border Protection, and search and rescue teams. Investigators reviewed surveillance footage across the neighborhood. They canvassed nearby homes. They collected digital evidence. They combed through every camera system in the surrounding area. FBI Director Kash Patel personally released a surveillance photo on the 10th of February showing the potential suspect outside Guthrie's home. That image went national within minutes of being published. The FBI confirmed they were also in contact with Mexican authorities, given Tucson's proximity to the US and Mexico border. Two officials briefed on the case told reporters there was no evidence that Nancy Guthrie had been taken across the border. But the outreach to Mexican authorities was described as standard procedure in a missing person case, with these circumstances. The Sonora State Attorney General's office in Mexico confirmed they had been made aware of the disappearance, but said as of mid-February they had not received a formal request for collaboration from US authorities. The reward money grew fast. The FBI initially offered $50,000. That was doubled to $100,000. An anonymous donor then contributed $100,000 to Tucson Crime Stoppers, known locally as 88 Crime, bringing the total reward pool to over $200,000. That money is still sitting there, 3 weeks in, unclaimed. Within days of Nancy's disappearance, ransom notes began appearing. Multiple ransom notes of undetermined origin were circulated after the abduction. The notes demanded payment in cryptocurrency. Two separate deadlines came and passed without resolution. The first deadline passed on the 5th of February. A second deadline of 5 in the afternoon on the 9th of February also passed without any confirmed payment or contact. The initial ransom demand was $6 million in cryptocurrency. But on the 18th of February, a new, chilling note surfaced via TMZ. This time, the demand was for completely untraceable crypto, accompanied by threats of graphic consequences, an escalation that officially pulled Mexican authorities deeper into the crisis on the 4th of February. Savannah Guthrie posted a video to social media alongside her siblings Annie and Cameron. The three of them appeared together on camera in one of the most emotional public statements of the entire case. They addressed the ransom letter directly. They said they had heard the reports about a ransom letter, and that as a family, they were doing everything they could. They said they needed proof of life before they could move forward. They said they needed to know without a doubt that their mother was alive and that whoever had her needed to make contact. Then on the 7th of February, Savannah posted another video and said 3 words that became the headline everywhere. "We will pay." The family confirmed they had received a message. That message had been sent to a local media outlet. It contained the 9th of February deadline. Investigators were studying it to determine if it was authentic. The local station that received the message said it did not contain proof of life. But here is where the case took a turn that nobody expected. On the 5th of February, a California man was arrested on federal charges. He had posed as the abductor. He had contacted the Guthrie family and demanded ransom. He had nothing to do with the actual abduction. Investigators confirmed his scheme was completely separate from the ransom demands that had already received wide publicity. Simone had watched this family beg for their mother on national television and decided to try to profit from their pain. He was arrested. The actual abductor remained free. A fake abductor arrested. A real ransom demand with 2 expired deadlines. And investigators still have no confirmed contact from whoever actually has Nancy Guthrie. Here is the one piece of physical evidence that could break this entire case open. For 2 weeks, Investigators had surveillance footage of a masked man with a gun outside Nancy Guthrie's home. They had blood on her front porch. They had 30,000 tips pouring in from the public, but they did not have a single piece of physical evidence that could be directly tied to whoever took her. That changed on the 15th of February, 2026. The FBI confirmed that a black glove had been recovered approximately 2 miles from Nancy Guthrie's home in the Catalina Foothills area of Tucson. It was not found on a main road or in a visible location. It was found in a field near the side of a road, the kind of place you only find something if you are specifically looking for it. Investigators had been conducting an extensive canvass of the surrounding area since the first days of the investigation, collecting anything that might connect back to the masked figure seen on that doorbell camera. In total, approximately 16 gloves were recovered from the broader search area, but one glove stood apart from the rest immediately. The FBI examined the footage of the masked suspect taken from Nancy Guthrie's doorbell camera on the morning of the 1st of February and compared it against the glove recovered in the field. Their conclusion was direct. The black glove appeared to match the gloves worn by the suspect in that footage. Same color, same style. The kind of match that moves something from a random piece of discarded clothing to a piece of potential evidence in a federal kidnapping investigation. The glove was not sent to a standard government lab. Investigators sent it to a private forensic laboratory in Florida. It left Tucson on Thursday the 13th of February and arrived at the Florida facility on the 14th of February. The analysis began immediately. Here is where the investigation hit its first significant wall. The FBI ran the DNA from that glove through CODIS. CODIS is the national DNA database maintained by law enforcement across the United States. It contains DNA profiles collected from people who have been arrested for felonies. It is the first stop in any DNA investigation because a match in CODIS can identify a suspect within hours. When the Gilgo Beach investigators got Rex Heuermann's DNA from a pizza box, Colorado DIS helped confirm what they already suspected. In the Nancy Guthrie case, Colorado DIS came back empty. No match. The DNA profile pulled from that black glove does not exist in the National Law Enforcement Database. That means whoever wore that glove has no prior felony arrests anywhere in the United States. There is no fingerprint, no mugshot, no existing file in the system that connects to this person. For investigators, that result is both a setback and a piece of information. It tells them something important about who they are looking for. This is not someone with a long criminal history who has been through the system multiple times. This is either someone who has never been caught before or someone who has been extremely careful their entire life. Both possibilities make the case harder, but neither one makes it impossible. Because CODIS was not the only option on the table, investigators confirmed they were also pursuing genetic genealogy testing on DNA found at Nancy Guthrie's home. Genetic genealogy is the technique that completely changed cold case investigations in the United States. It was the method that finally identified Joseph James D'Angelo as the Golden State Killer in 2018, after he had evaded law enforcement for over 40 years. The process works by taking an unknown DNA sample and uploading it to consumer ancestry databases like GEDmatch or FamilyTreeNer. The software searches for partial DNA matches, which indicate relatives of the unknown person. From those matches, genealogists build a family tree reaching backward through generations until they identify the most likely source of the original DNA. Then, investigators confirm the match through a direct sample from the identified person. It is a slow process. It requires both scientific skill and detailed genealogical research, but it has solved cases that were completely cold for decades. And it does not require the suspect to already be in any law enforcement database. It only requires that one of their relatives anywhere in the country has ever submitted a consumer DNA sample to one of those platforms. While the glove was being analyzed in Florida, a second investigative thread was running in parallel through the streets of Tucson. The black 25-liter Ozark Trail hiker backpack, worn by the suspect in the doorbell footage, had been identified specifically by the FBI. Ozark Trail is not a name brand sold through specialty outdoor retailers. It is Walmart's own private label outdoor gear brand. That means it is sold at Walmart locations and essentially nowhere else. Investigators began canvassing retail locations across the Tucson area, looking for any purchase records, security footage, or employee recollections connected to that specific bag. A Walmart spokesperson declined to comment when asked whether the FBI had made direct contact with the company. They said nothing further. Retired FBI Supervisory Special Agent Jason Pack laid it out plainly in an interview with CNN. He said the backpack was the single best piece of information and the strongest lead in the entire investigation. He said everything flows from identifying that bag, tracing where it was sold, and finding out who bought it. A Walmart sale of a specific bag model in a specific city during a specific time window is exactly the kind of data trail that can put a name to a masked face. One glove in a field 2 miles away. One backpack on a surveillance camera. One DNA profile with no match in any law enforcement system. 3 threads. And the clock on Nancy Guthrie's medication running down every single day. 3 weeks into this investigation, CNN reported that investigators still had no single leading theory about what happened to Nancy Guthrie. Authorities were actively working at least 3 different possibilities. The first was a targeted abduction connected to her famous daughter. Savannah Guthrie is one of the most recognized television anchors in the United States. The theory was that someone targeted Nancy specifically because of who her daughter was and what her daughter could potentially pay. The second is a burglary gone wrong, fueled by the viral wrong house theory. The massive Tucson gem show had just wrapped up, and thieves had recently stolen native gold from attendees. There is heavy speculation that the armed suspect was actually targeting a neighbor involved in the gem trade, but broke into Nancy's house by mistake. Multiple experts told Arizona reporters the footage shows someone moving cautiously, not someone with a clear extraction plan. The footage showed someone who appeared to be tampering with the camera and moving cautiously, not someone who arrived with a clear extraction plan. A law enforcement source told Arizona's Family Television that investigators had developed a widespread belief that the abduction began as a burglary that escalated. The third was a random opportunistic crime by someone who knew the neighborhood and knew an elderly woman lived alone in that house. None of these theories have been officially confirmed or ruled out. The sheriff said plainly that the motive remained unknown. He said they did not know if it was a kidnapping or a burglary gone wrong. 2 men were detained separately during the investigation. The first was a delivery man who identified himself as Carlos. The second was a 37-year-old Tucson man named Luke Daly, whose home was searched on the night of the 14th of February. His attorney confirmed he was briefly detained and released. His attorney said Daly had no link whatsoever to Nancy Guthrie and had no information related to her kidnapping. Investigators were reported to be leaning away from both men as possible suspects. A person of interest was also stopped at a traffic stop near a fast food restaurant at First Avenue and River Road on Friday the 14th of February. The Pima County Sheriff confirmed the stop was related to the Guthrie investigation. The person was cooperative and was released. 3 weeks in, no arrests, no charges, no confirmed suspect. Savannah Guthrie stepped away from her duties at NBC within days of her mother's disappearance. She had been scheduled to co-host coverage of the opening ceremonies of the 2026 Winter Olympics in Milan and Cortina d'Ampezzo, Italy. She did not go. She stayed home. She has posted multiple videos to her Instagram account since the 1st of February. Each one has been watched by millions of people. Each one has been a direct message, sometimes to the public asking for help, and sometimes addressed directly to whoever has her mother. In her most recent video, posted as the search entered its 3rd week, Savannah said 2 things that stood out above everything else. She said her family still had hope, and she said directly to her mother's captor, "It is never too late to do the right thing." Her brother Cameron posted his own video earlier in the investigation. He said whoever is out there holding their mother, they want to hear from them. He said they had not heard anything directly. He said they needed contact, and they needed a way to communicate. He said they needed to talk. The entire Guthrie family was formally cleared as suspects by the Pima County Sheriff on the 16th of February. Sheriff Nanos was pointed in his statement. He said to suggest the family was involved is not only wrong, it is cruel. He said they had been nothing but cooperative and gracious, and that they were victims in this case. President Donald Trump also weighed in publicly through an interview with the New York Post. He said the abductors would face very, very severe, the most severe federal consequences if Nancy Guthrie was found dead. 30,000 tips are being processed by investigators across multiple agencies. And still, as of today, nobody has come forward. Not the person who took her. Not someone who knows where she is. Not a witness who saw something that night. Nobody. The reward is $200,000. The family is begging. The FBI is working. And somewhere out there, someone knows exactly what happened on that front porch in Tucson, Arizona at 1947 in the morning on the 1st of February, 2026. They just have not said a word.